fast, right? Then you might want to buckle up.
So now, my friends, we're going to go ahead and get into my review for Fast X, Fast and Furious 10, chat. Furious 10, whatever you want to call it, the latest chapter in the Fast and Furious saga. Technically, it's the 12th entry in the series at this point, chat. Math is hard. Got to count the spin-offs too, chat. Hobbs and Shaw, which I thought was okay. It was entertaining enough. And Better Luck Tomorrow, which was retroactively made into a Fast and Furious film. Very underrated film, in my opinion, chat. Really good crime thriller. Actually, I highly recommend it. I think I did a review for that movie a few years ago. It was pretty entertaining. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about Fast X. And if you guys need a synopsis, do you? Okay, here's the synopsis of the movie, chat. A bad guy from the past wants to destroy the family with giant hamster balls of doom and retcons and lack of physics, chat. And then the family has to fight said bad guy with basically the same things, with the exception of they don't have their own giant hamster ball, at least not yet, but also, various retcons and lack of realism and gravity and physics, chat. It's just a lot of ridiculousness going up against even more ridiculousness. That's the plot of this movie, okay? Listen, before getting into this film, quote unquote, I did want to talk about just the Fast and Furious, series. Again, it's crazy that 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, that this series had like super humble beginnings. Like before, like the original The Fast and The Furious, as it was called, it was just like a Point Break ripoff with cars. This is back in the day when Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez were being pursued by rookie LAPD detective Brian, played by Paul Walker, because these guys were they used to steal DVD players and TVs, combination DVD and VHS players, chat. That's what they used to do. And we all thought that was so cool. And then you had the various sequels, Too Fast, Too Furious, where some of the original cast didn't return because they didn't want to. And they continue to have other characters. And you had one other film, which practically had nothing to do with the previous movies, of Tokyo Drift. But then when they with 4, they brought back a lot of the same faces, which they got to set up with Tokyo Drift due to the fact that film's box office was just, didn't measure up to the previous entries. And, you had Fast and Furious, brought back, Justin Lin from Tokyo Drift. But then really, I would say, the film that I think changed Fast and Furious was 5. Fast 5, I believe. And, I actually think that's like a really entertaining action film. I like the location, chat in Brazil. Introducing Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson before we were all sick of him. I thought he did a really good job. It was like, yes, and that's when it got ridiculous, and that's when they started to really ignore physics and things. But that movie now is might as well be a goddamn documentary. It's so realistic at this point, chat, compared to where we are now. But Fast 5 was very entertaining. Then 6, which again increased the ridiculousness, but still entertaining. And then, I think really culminating with 7. That was the last one to me that was like special, and sadly, it came out under tragic circumstances with the very sudden tragic passing of Paul Walker, played the character of Brian. And that movie had heart. As ridiculous as those films were at that point, and they were, with all the various characters and action scenes and CGI, that movie it had something. Like, I think all of us were kind of affected. I was like, yeah, I got a little water ride, by the end of that movie. And I was like, wow, this is great. And then I think after that point, they never been able to recapture the magic of those last 3 films of 5, 6, and 7, which I feel like those are the standouts of the franchise. 8, I didn't care for 8. And he had Hobbs and Shaw, which is entertaining enough, but, still didn't have the same magic. and then, of course, 9, and then here we are with 10, chat. And I don't think, at this point, if you're yearning for 5, 6, and 7, like if those are your favorites and you're hoping that they're going to capture the magic again one day with a later entry, I'm going to tell you right now, stop. Stop. Like, even I'm just like, well, maybe they could do. It's like, no, it's over, chat. You know, it's what it's going to be at this point. And, you know, maybe it was maybe they should have ended it with 7, honestly. But hey, they're still going to make them, at least for now. We'll see. But, you know, that brings me to my overall thoughts, my review for Fast X, chat, Fast 10. And, you know, this whole movie, I would say, is about escalation in terms of action, special effects, and bombastic CGI escapades. You know, whereas, you know, as many of the past films have an action set piece scene, you know, that's even more ridiculous than like the last one in a previous Fast and Furious film. This one has several of those types of set pieces, though instead of just being like one big one, it's like one after the other, chat. It's just back to back to back to back to back. Let's go even crazier than what we just did maybe 15 minutes ago. That's what this movie is really interested in. That's what this movie is really focused on, chat. It's reveling in its ridiculously loud CGI cacophony. That's what it is. It's a cacophony of loudness, of bombacity, of action scenes on top of action scenes. There's a sandwich together which features characters that we used to like. And honestly, after a while watching this movie, which again, it's too long. It's over 2 hours. It's just kind of numbing after a while. Not that there's some stuff to be appreciated. I mean, there is some stuff. It's like, wow, I'll put this all together, the choreography. But we've kind of gotten to a point where because they've chosen to be so ridiculous and over the top, and like we have to go bigger and louder, that now like nothing has any weight. Like there's so many scenes in this film where it's like, this isn't like a car. It's like a CGI construction. It's a CGI construct that I'm watching. It's like a car can't do these things. Like, and there's just no weight to it. So even like in, like, again, 5, 6, and 7, which had ridiculous stunts, it's like a lot of those films, it's still used like practical effects. And obviously assisted by CGI and crazy stunt work. But now it's like nothing's real anymore. You know, which at this point, well, of course it's not real. You know, they're superhero spies. I'm like, yeah, I understand that, but it's like these action scenes eventually you're just kind of bored. It was like, okay. It's like, yeah, okay, you have a giant hamster ball going, or you know, around Italy, and it has a nuclear bomb inside. And even though, by the way, I don't understand how that ball, just, you know, as an aside, chat, how does, like, I understand, again, this is about physics. That ball is somehow propelling itself throughout fucking Italy, just moving by itself. It's like, how does it have that consistent momentum? It's as fast as the other cars. It doesn't make any sense, but that's what we're working with. And again, if you start thinking that way, then you're going to even have a worse experience. But it's just, I don't think that's even the most ridiculous scene in the movie. I think that's kind of tame compared to a lot of the stuff that we see later on in this film. But my point is, it's just about this escalation of big bombastic CGI effects. But because these cars aren't real anymore, you don't really feel any emotion. You know, I don't think you even are thrilled by the scenes. I think I certainly was, and it was just like, it's just kind of washing over me, and it's just like, all right, that happened. It's getting hit by waves, like literally physically getting hit by waves watching this film, and then you kind of forget about it after a while because they have something new in front of you. But it's just diminishing returns, I would say, chat. Listen, I know I'm sounding like really negative right at the top, but the one thing I will say, you know, aside from just, you know, the constant, you know, waves of CGI metal being thrown at you, the one thing that I think actually stands out in a positive way in this movie, very positive, is Jason Momoa, who plays the villainous Dante Reyes. Now, he's somehow retconned into the history of the Fast and Furious franchise by being the son of the villain from Fast 5, just Reyes, Mr. Reyes, I don't know, Reyes Senior, chat, right? And the way in which they try to retcon and place him into scenes from that movie is ridiculous and laugh out loud funny. There are so many scenes like, he was there the whole time. I'm like, no, he wasn't. But the movie's just like, yes, he was. Like, it'll take, like, actual, like, footage. They use a lot of archive footage from Fast 5. And, like, they'll go inside, like, a car, and they'll just, and it's like, okay, I remember the shot with Reyes. He was in the back and everything. But then they'll just kind of, like, pan the camera over, and, like just to the right was Jason Momoa the whole time. It's like, Jason Momoa is like a 6'7" giant Polynesian man. You can't hide him. He's like, oh yeah, no, he was, yep, he just blended in the background. It's like, he did not blend, all right? He takes up 2/3 of the backseat. He takes up 2/3 of the goddamn Humvee that they're driving in the movie. You're saying like, oh yeah, no, he was there. Bullshit. But it's very amusing how they retcon him in. It's funny. It's just like, okay, sure, whatever. But you know, because of the events of that film and Reyes being killed by Dom and the family, Dante basically has been planning for years to destroy, you know, Vin Diesel and his family, right? You took my family from me, I'm gonna take yours from you. And he has such a big, he really does. He has a big family, like, and I'm glad that Jason Momoa and I were on pretty much on the same page. We have like a similar criticism in regards to the family. But before getting to that, and just despite how stupid his, like, retcon is, Momoa is actually doing, like, a really good job in the movie. Like, he's very entertaining. You know, he just kind of, he just revels in his madness. It's already been said by other people, other reviewers, chat. He's a big, cackling Hawaiian joker. That's what he is. And, you know, before, you know, because even when they were describing his character, like, in the press and stuff, and reading about it and saying, like, oh, no, it's going to be a very different character for Jason Momoa, I was like, okay, sure. All right, yeah. And I figured he'd just be Aquaman again, you know, my man, woo! That's what he would be. But he's not. He's playing something very different. And I like that. He's funny. He's charming. He's also, like, very effeminate. And I don't know, it was just different for a lot of the villains that we've gotten in this franchise, especially at this point, you know. And he has some, like, really like funny, great one-liners. He's like the best character in the movie, you know. It's just a shame he's in one of the weakest entries, you know, because he is really giving it his all, chat. Like, in terms of how he dresses, he's over the top, you know. You never kind of know, and he's like the Joker. Everyone's right, he is, like, because you don't know what he's gonna say, and that's what makes him so exciting. You know, like, even when he's murdering people, it's like, it's funny. He's like, kills someone and he just, like, licks the knife with it's covered in blood. He's like, yeah, I'm crazy. He's that, but it works. It's like, yeah, he realized, like, oh, I'm in the Fast and Furious movie. I'm gonna be just as ridiculous as the action is, and he does it. He brings that personality, which is so needed. He makes a lot of this tolerable when he's at least on screen. You know, and honestly, I think he's one of the best additions to the franchise, probably since, at least initially, maybe not so much anymore, but since Statham's character of Deckard Shaw was introduced in Furious 7, who was this relenting force, the Terminator, that was like, oh shit, this guy's, like, serious. But this guy, he has infinitely more personality than, like, Deckard Shaw ever had, even when he was at his best in something like Furious 7. Sadly, chat, you know, outside of Jason Momoa, in terms of the original cast and new supporting characters, there is, it's so weird because it's like, wait a minute, has it always been this way? There's like a real lack of personality in this film. You know, the cast is so large at this point. The family is so goddamn big that outside of, you know, Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez, the rest of the family gets, like, very little to do. You know, even seemingly interesting, like, team ups that were like, oh, that's going to be kind of cool to see, with, like, you know, Deckard, Shaw, and Han, who, like, oh, they have a history, are lackluster. It's like, oh, but even at this point, because they've retconned so much of the family's history of every entry, it's like, even, like, Deckard, Shaw, and Han are like, yeah, we're good, right? And it's like, yeah. It's like, oh, that was, like, such a big thing back in the day. It's like, justice for Han. It's like, these two guys are going to be going up against each other. Like, what's this going to be? And it's just, it comes to nothing. It's just like, wow, that it's just disappointing. And it plays out for a lot of the other team-ups and a lot of the other little side adventures that these characters go on. There's nothing, I don't know, entertaining about it, honestly. And listen, they also bring in some new characters here, new members, possible future members of the family, chat. You know, seemingly, you know, Alan Ritchson, who probably people best know for playing Jack Reacher in the excellent Amazon series, Reacher. I actually highly recommend it. If you were disappointed by the Tom Cruise Jack Reacher movies, you will absolutely love the Amazon show, because Alan Ritchson, he does such a great job in that. He's like, yep, you're Jack Reacher from those books. He's here. Brie Larson, she's here too. They are just incredibly uninteresting in this. And I'm like, why are they even here? They almost feel like placeholders for other characters that we don't know the fates of. Like, I'll tell you right now, like Alan Ritchson's character, he plays, what's his name? Ames, I believe. Like, he aims, chat, get it? He's like the new Mr. Nobody, because we still don't know what the hell happened to Kurt Russell's character. Don't worry, he's not dead. I'm sure he's fine. They make sure to say, oh, but we don't know where he is. And I was like, what do you mean by that? What are you talking about? So he'll definitely pop up again in a sequel. They're like, oh yeah, he went missing. We don't know what happened to him. And so Alan Ritchson is playing, you know, basically the new version of him, a younger, broader version, more muscular, you know, new model, right? And Brie Larson, I don't think it's a spoiler. She's the daughter of Mr. Nobody, Little Miss Nobody, whatever you want to call her, chat. Again, very little for her to do. And I don't think it's either of their faults. It's just that there are so many characters in this movie, and they just don't know how to use any of them, that they're just kind of like there. They're there for plot twist, really. That's what they're really there for. And maybe to possibly set up things for future entries later on. It's just to get to the next action scene. That's what they're there for, chat. And that's the other thing. Like I said, you never feel worried for any of these people at this point. There are so many scenes in this movie where they clearly show the characters dying, like many members of the family. But it's just a bunch of fake outs, or it's being set up for fake outs down the road. Like anyone that said like, oh God, they killed this person, they killed these people, they killed these, don't fucking worry about it. They're gonna be okay. They defy death. Speaking of death, death is really meaningless in this franchise now. Fast and Furious is as egregious as Dragon Ball when it comes to bringing back characters from the dead. It's like, listen, if you didn't get, like, Fast and Furious, I do believe, follows horror movie rules, chat. What did Randy Meek say in Scream? Shoot him in the head and then they're dead, all right? That's how it works. All right, they always come back for one last scare. You got to shoot them in the head. That's how it ends. That's the only way you kill these fuckers. All right, that's how this works. So Vince, he ain't coming back because he got shot to shit. But if you got, if you blew up in an explosion, if you got sucked out of an airplane, or anything else, Chad, you got thrown off a cliff, you got auto accident, you're okay. You're coming back. You're just going to be out of commission maybe for a couple of films, but they are going to bring you back later on. So don't you worry about that. But yeah, death, it doesn't matter. So all those moments where it's like, hey, that was actually a sad thing happened to that character. Don't worry about it. They're going to be back. Like, what happened to this person? Don't worry. They're okay. They're just, they're going to return in an entry or one of the last ones. So, and at that point, it's just like, well, then why am I watching this? You know what? If there's no stakes, they think they're raising the stakes by having these increasingly dangerous action scenes, right? Right? But if the characters can brush off anything like it's, nothing, a giant explosion or being chased by helicopters down a goddamn dam while all these other missiles are coming at you, and then a fucking airplane's got bombs on it, it crashes in the goddamn ground with members of the cast there. You know, it's like, oh, that's going to be serious. Like, no, you already shown me that these characters survive anyway, so what's the point? It's kind of dull after a while. And, you know, really, chat, sadly, at this point, I think I'm just waiting for this series, this film series to wrap up. And listen, and if the lackluster box office is any indication, I think it's going to be doing that pretty soon. I know that Vin Diesel said that, oh, yeah, this is going to be a trilogy. The final, I guess they're going to do 2 more movies. They said they're going to just do 1. Now, apparently, it's going to do 2. This is what the lowest performing Fast and Furious film in terms of, like, opening box office since, what was it, Tokyo Drift? Like, it did not, internationally, I think it's made a lot of money. But here in the States, it's going to get clobbered. Like, this week, we have, like, June is going to be a bloodbath. And we have Across the Spider-Verse, like, next week. I mean, now, listen, Transformers is not tracking very well, paying for the sins of past terrible Transformers movies, sadly. But now after that, we got The Flash, and then we got Indiana Jones. Like, I don't see this film making a lot of money here in the United States. It's so competitive. So they say that they're going to do 2 more. This film's budget, I mean, I've been referring to Wikipedia throughout this review. It's estimated to be $340 million because they probably did a lot of reshoots as well. And they had the whole situation of Justin Lin leaving because of disagreements with Vin Diesel, apparently. Just like a very toxic set. I just don't think they're gonna do 2 more. I mean, maybe 1 more, maybe, but that whole thing about being a trilogy, I was like, I don't believe it. But yeah, Chad, outside of Jason Momoa, who is like really bringing this movie, and he's playing a very different type of character than I've never seen him do something like this before, and it's fun to watch him. And it makes me even more excited for when he will probably be Lobo one day. It's like, oh shit, man, if you bring any of this energy to like Lobo, oh, we're in for a treat, chat. We're in for a treat for James Gunn's inevitable DCU version of Lobo. But other than that, there's not a lot here. It's I don't know. If I were to give this a rating, I'd give this a very low rental. I can't give it quite some old bullshit, chat, but it's a low rental. You know, this franchise's glory days are far behind at this point. Now we're just kind of watching it peter out, chat. You know, literally driving itself into the ground a quarter mile at a time. That's where we are with the Fast and Furious franchise. But that's just my thoughts on the movie. I'm curious for you guys. What did you think of the film? Did you like it more than me? Did you hate it? Let me know. I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and I want to take the time to tell you about my Patreon, Class in the Glass, which offers hundreds of film commentaries and video reactions to numerous movies, TV shows, and cartoons. If you're a fan of shows like Batman the Animated Series and Avatar The Last Airbender, or films like Aliens and Raiders of the Lost Ark, my Patreon is the platform for you. Currently, I'm doing a subathon to reach 75 subs on the platform. If we hit 75 subs, we'll be able to start voting on the next edited YouTube reaction, which will include actual clips and scenes from the movies and shows I comment over. Choose from such films as Fire and Ice, Masters of the Universe, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, or Spawn. Subscribing at any tier level is appreciated, and feel free to give feedback at any time. Thank you again for watching the video, and see you next time.